Welcome to 360 Studio. My guest today is a member of an European Parliament from Germany, Mr. Daniel Freund. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Freund, yesterday you met with our Prime Minister Robert Fico. What did you learn from this meeting?
First of all, it's good that he met with us, that he took some time to speak to our delegation. He seems to be very frustrated about the mission last week. That's how he started the meeting, and he seems to think that most of the problems in Slovakia are down to the last government. When we just wanted to ask questions about what's going on in Slovakia right now, he was talking a lot about 2020 to 2023.
Yes, he does the same thing with journalists sometimes, but did he answer your questions in regards to the things that you visited this country about?
He answered something, but I have lots of questions left. I was part of both delegations last week and this week. For me, as a budget controller, this is primarily about the question, are EU funds that go to Slovakia, are they going to ordinary Slovakians? Are they actually improving the lives here? Or is some of this money being stolen? Is there a problem in the oversight mechanism? And particularly, there's sort of this triple attack, right? There is the dismantling of the Special Prosecutor's Office, there is the dismantling of the National Crime Agency, plus the changes to the criminal law, particularly the extension of the limitation statutes, meaning that people that are actually investigated, all of a sudden, all these investigations have to be dropped. And for me, that was the prime question, and I didn't get any answers on that. I got some explanations. There was mention of individual cases that seem to have gone wrong in the past. None of that explains why you have to dismantle a large share of the anti-corruption framework in the country.
And so when your questions are not answered, what are the possible consequences? What will be the result of this mission?
Well, I asked the question time and again. We didn't only meet the Prime Minister, but we met ministers, a number of state secretaries and other government bodies. And time and again, I asked the question without really getting an answer. We're gonna keep pushing that. It seems that the number of indictments in the area of corruption has very drastically gone down. Some of the interlocutors that we spoke to said there is maybe even a 95% decline in the number of corruption indictments. As I said, the government hasn't given us any number. We'll keep asking until we get numbers. In the meantime, we now have to discuss among the members of Parliament. For me personally, I think the next step is what we learned in these 2 weeks, to put that on paper, basically, and have a majority in the European Parliament adopt this. The Commission is coming out with its rule of law report in July, so that's sort of the next pressure point. But I think, as the European Union, we need to increase the pressure, because it's our job to make sure, that there is an independent judiciary that can oversee the management of EU funds, and also the respect, quite honestly, of fundamental values and EU law in all member states. And whenever we have the impression that that isn't fully working in a member state, we need to put pressure.
Okay. Good thing that you've mentioned it, because Mr. Fico, yesterday when you left the government's office, he held a brief press conference where he didn't allow any questions from journalists. And he said something interesting regarding the mandate of your group of members of European Parliament. Let's watch a short clip on the TV.
My sme si plne vedomi toho, že Európsky parlament nemá právo kontrolovať Slovenskú republiku ani nám nič prikazovať. Ale my sme prejavili elementárnu úctu a rešpekt europoslancom, ktorí požiadali o stretnutie a mali záujem s nami rozprávať.
So he claims that it's just a basic decency and these are just regular conversations, that you guys don't have the mandate to monitor what goes on with EU funds, or you can take it from his own mouth. So what is your precise mandate for the people who don't know what rights have members of European Parliament in regards to managing the EU funds in Slovakia?
Well, all the 27 member states of the EU have voluntarily joined the European Union, and that comes with certain rights but also obligations. Each country, the government first and foremost, have to respect the EU treaties and all the law that that derives from that. And well, the first instance to make sure that EU law is respected is the European Commission. That is, they are the guardians of the treaty. We as the European Parliament were the guardians of the treaty. It's our job to control that the European Commission does its job. But we also have a role in making sure that the laws, the regulations that we adopt in the European Parliament are then also respected in the member states, and that everything functions according to those rules. So naturally, we have a mandate to look at that, and we do that. And I'm a member now for 6 years. I've visited a number of countries and looked at how is the rule of law, how is the management of EU funds going. That the Budget Control Committee of the European Parliament has a job in looking at the budget and how it's being managed and spent in each member state. And now this week, this is the Democracy, Fundamental Rights, Rule of Law Monitoring Group that is here. It's a natural part of it's the Home Affairs Committee of the European Parliament. But one of our jobs is to make sure that Article 2, that the fundamental values, things like democracy, freedom of expression, gender equality, that these things are respected in all member states. And when we think it's not, then it's our job to correct that. And all the member states have to respect EU law and the EU treaties. So we have a strong mandate for that, given by 450 million European citizens that elected us to do just that.
But what does it mean technically that you will submit some sort of report to the European Parliament and then the Commission gets to decide as to what to do with that report? Because there have been criticisms that sometimes people like Mr. Orbán or Mr. Fico, they make some sort of appeasement to the members of a Commission in regarding, for example, Russia and Ukraine, and they will turn a blind eye to the possible misuse of EU funds. Can that happen again, maybe?
I mean, look at the concrete example of Mr. Orbán. That's maybe the biggest problem case that we have in the European Union. I've been working on that now for 6 years in the European Parliament. And it started with missions and reports, but ultimately we have frozen a majority of the EU funds. I mean, technically it's the European Commission, but it was the pressure of the European Parliament, time and again, to push the Commission to go as far as to take the European Commission to the European Court of Justice, because they didn't do their job properly. And in the end, the Commission froze. I mean, currently there's 18 billion euros of EU funds that are supposed to go to Hungary, but that are on ice, that are frozen until the Hungarian government implements the necessary reforms. So this is a multi-step procedure, right? It starts with reports and letters and exchanges, but this can escalate then to the freezing of EU funds. And theoretically, we haven't seen that in any member state yet, but there is a possibility even to withdraw voting rights in the Council for a member state government. So the EU has tools to deal with those that do not play by the EU rules.
And what stage is Slovakia at right now, if you would compare it to Hungary, considering the fact that you are not getting the answers to your questions, as you've said?
We're not at the same level as Hungary. I think also what we have seen here, there is still a more healthy opposition, civil society. Despite the pressure, the media landscape is also more healthy than what we see in Hungary. But what we also see is that the decline is very steep at the moment. Also, not only the reports of the European Commission, but if you look at reports by international experts, be it in the area of corruption, be it in the area of media freedom, you see actually that the decline that we have seen in Slovakia since 2023 is the steepest, or among the steepest, in the European Union. So we're not as bad as Hungary yet, but we're fast seeing that the government is moving in the same direction. And obviously, I think for me personally, I hope for the European Parliament, it's clear that we don't want the situation to get as bad as in Hungary, and that rather we send some warning signals early that hopefully the government corrects its course. Because I think things should be getting towards more freedom, towards more transparency, towards more democracy, rather than the other way around.
Mm-hmm. And how does the Mr. Fico or other members of government respond to criticism like that behind closed doors? Because publicly they say that the previous government was the one that was misusing the criminal law. They are a lot of times they're appealing to the European Union that you should do a fact-finding mission about the period between 2020 and 2023, and so they probably wouldn't agree that we are in decline. So how are they behind closed doors, and does that take a hint at whether they will respond accordingly, or they will respond negatively as to make something out of these trends that you are claiming that are going on in Slovakia?
Celý rozhovor nájdete na 360.sk.